folks, and welcome to the View podcast for a half-season review. Now that we're over halfway through the season, and have a good set of data to see where Leeds United sitting now versus where Leeds United sat last year. And will this be the year that we get back to the promised land on paper until we get there, and then it's not so much a promised land anymore? But we want to be there anyway. So that's all to come. Joined by Paul, I'm joined by Andrea, and I'm joined by Locky to discuss this season so far. Would love everyone's thoughts in the chat as well. And as has been said already in the chat, if you want to smash a like on this video as well, that would be awesome. First things first, before we get into the detail, we'll just check in with everybody, see how their weeks have gone and their weekends were. Paul, how are you? How was yours?
Good. Yeah, absolutely fine. Recovering from a night of a lot of alcohol on Saturday evening, but other than that, I'm absolutely fine. I'm ready for the week ahead.
Good. Yeah, well, if it's about alcohol and your decisions.
It's not tequila rose. Is not for the faint-hearted. I'm not doing it because we did the wasp thing last time. I'm not doing it, Jer. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it.
It's fine. I discovered whiskey sours at Christmas.
Well, just burning ring of fire, and I'm leaving it at that. It was terrible on Sunday. Awful. When will it end? That came through my head at one point, to be honest with you. I wasn't happy. Sorry. Football. Anyway.
Yeah, football. Andrea, welcome back to the podcast, mate. It's great to have you back. How have you been? Any escapades with alcohol?
No, I'm a teetotal, so there's no worrying about that. I don't drink, honestly. No, never drink. I think I drank a pint of Guinness in the past, but I can't remember the taste of it, honestly. That's the problem. I can't remember the taste of it.
Well, but Guinness is a good thing to not remember the taste of, especially after your first pint. Takes a while to get used to. So yeah, but I'm glad that was the one.
Yeah.
I'm glad that was the one. Locky, how are you doing, mate? How's your week? Sorry, Andrea, go ahead. Sorry.
No worries, John. I would just want to say thanks again for the invite. And yeah, I had a good weekend. I'm not going to go over like Paul, but then go over by shouting at the referee yesterday at Reggiana's game, because yesterday it was the worst referee I've seen in my whole life, honestly. If you have a chance to go and check the highlights, because it looked like the Far West yesterday, honestly. In Reggio, it looked like the Far West, honestly, at the stadium.
Go check that one out. Yeah, that'd be an interesting one to watch. Locky, how are you, mate? How has your weekend been, and how are things going with you?
Yeah, all right. It's busy, mate. It's nothing fun to say. Yeah, it's been all right. It's nothing much. Just fine.
Yeah.
Gotta love the enthusiasm, man.
I've been waking up, sat in the computer, doing work, eating, doing more work, sleeping. That's probably... And then doing some amazing lives with the Leeds community.
Good recovery at the end there, after describing just what life is in general to everybody else. Lucky, get up, go to work, come home, do something. That's how it goes. It's a funny one. Everyone's a bit kind of meh, and we're not going to talk about the weekend's game in the FA Cup, because I don't think we've learned anything from that game, except that Isaac Schmidt could be pretty decent as an option, and Carl Darlow probably deserves a crack at it but won't get it. That's all I took from the entirety of that game, and I want to kind of move past that as much as we can and talk about the entire first half of the season. I want to start off with Paul, and I will say there's some graphics and stuff we'll throw up at some point. I say graphics every time and I laugh in my head, because there's a couple of slides that I put up that I've thrown together. Graphics is giving it way more credit than it deserves. But Paul sent me over some lovely data earlier on to include in this, so thanks to Paul for that. But Paul, I want to start with you.
Mm-hmm.
This time last season, Leeds United were sitting fourth in the championship table. I'm not going to put the numbers on the screen just yet. But we were miles behind the league leaders, and here we sit now this season, top of the pile, albeit very fine margin to second place. But all looks good for an automatic run. If you were to look at this at the start of the season, if someone had shown you this and said, there you go, Christmas, that's you, where would your head be then? And how do you feel about looking at it now?
I think if anybody gives you a start at the start of the season, you take it 100%. Of course you do, because it means you're at the top of the pile. Everybody else is chasing you. Technically, the pressure should be on everybody else. But it's really, really, really weird that I think we all kind of sit here going, everybody's kind of feels like it could be a lot better than what it actually is. And I think there is a lot of instances that have led to that. Things where goals have been let in when they shouldn't have been, performances haven't been where we think they should be, etc., so on and so forth. But all the metrics are above where they were. Well, it's big enough to be a blanket. All the metrics are better than where we were last season, but it doesn't feel that way. This season feels weird. That's the only way that I can explain it. It feels like we're not kind of satisfied, and I think there's a little bit of the ever disillusioned Leeds United fan that comes into it, that no matter how good things might be, we have this general tend to think to ourselves, it's all going to go to crap in about the next half an hour or something is going to happen that's going to make it go really, really bad. There's been instances where it feels like it's 50-50, where some people like Farke, some people dislike him. Some people like the team, some people dislike the team. Some people like players, some people dislike players. We seem to be really split down the middle, and consequently, we can't. I mean, you never enjoy the championship, anyways. You do a little, but people don't seem to be enjoying it as much as what we should be, and that's just how I feel.
I'm with you though, because like putting this together earlier on, I've been sitting here for a while, kind of going through it, and I'm not excited in any way, shape, or form. I haven't felt overly excited this season. And I wonder, is there maybe just, a little bit of Leeds United entitlement sneaking in a little bit of, well, we've got the biggest wage in the division. We've got the best players in the division. We'll cakewalk this and up we go. So, and because we're not cakewalking it, that's always there. And you do have that fear, Locky, in the back of your head of, we'll make a balls of this, won't we? And that's the word for me. Do you think, considering where we are on the table right now, over halfway through the league, do you think it's just that little bit of fear that's in the back of everyone's head of, we'll balls this up?
Yeah, honestly, Joe, I have that fear, even if it's mathematically possible. I just have a fear that we're going to get deducted points for something we did 20 years ago or something like that. I always have it. It's always there. I can't help it. It's just there all the time. So looking at the league table just does nothing for me. We could be 20 points clear and I'd still be scared. So, yeah. And I think in a weird way, every single season, I think before the last one when we got relegated, we've kind of been underdogs in a way, and I think we like that. I think we've got used to that as a club. Even when we were in the Prem, we weren't the biggest boys. We were the ones that were trying to crash that party all the time. So when we went up, obviously the season Bielsa came, we were massive. We had no idea what to expect at all, and the pure surprise that after what was it, 14 years at that time, that we're actually playing unbelievable football, and we've just beaten a team who's been relegated from the Premier League, and we absolutely destroyed them. We all started to go, oh, okay, this is good. And then the season after, there was the whole kind of, we failed, and we didn't have that experience of the Premier League, so it was, right, we'll go again and we'll do it this time. Whereas now, the difference between Farke and Bielsa at that time and this time is we've already had it, Premier League recently. So we kind of just want to get back there because we know what this league's like. We don't like this league. It's not a great league. I don't think the atmospheres at any ground or anything are as good as they used to be. The rivalry seem, you know what I mean? Like I watch like some fan content of other fans, and they're all really nice to us, and I don't like it. I want them to hate us a little bit more. They're all really kind. Whereas under Bielsa, when we first got good, people hated it, didn't they? They were hating the fact that we were top of the league. They hated it. But now everyone's really nice to us. So I feel like there's not really a connection with a league. We don't really care about it, and we just want to get back. Even though we know going up, we'll probably lose most weeks. Still, every week in the Prem, we're kind of the underdogs. And I think we like that as a fan base. I know I do. I love that underdog side of it. I think it's brilliant. There's the idea that we are really good and we do have Premier League players, and we should probably win every game 3 or 4-0. And and when you don't do that, it's a bit disappointing. But yeah, it's just it's the league, I think, mate. I don't think we'll ever enjoy it. Even if I know people want Farke out, we're bringing a new manager in. I still think it'll be the same. It'll settle into a usual pattern. Teams will still sit deep no matter who we bring in. It'll be exactly the same. There'll be the same issues for me. So it's the league, mate, I think.
Well, just think, if we do get promoted, then everyone can be screaming at the TV, why don't we go forward? Why don't we go forward? Why don't we go forward? Because we're just camped on our own goal line. Andrea, I mean, there's a lot of stuff to be said in there. What Locky said, I think he's probably right on most of the points. But one thing that was said there by Paul as well that I want to bring up is, and Locky's kind of hinted at it as well. some people like Farke, some people don't like Farke. Given where Leeds are in the table and given what the goal is this season, does it really matter if you like Daniel Farke or not, or is it just about getting up?
I think it's just about getting up at this point, honestly, because I think the manager, if we're top, there's a reason. The football sometimes is attractive, sometimes is unattractive. There's when we play against certain types of systems of team defending in a certain way, we're exciting. Against low blocks, for example, we're really static, and we really struggle to figure out how to break them down. It happened against Harrogate too, and they're a League Two side. So of course you can always improve. I think it's down to also in-game management, because I always said that he makes the subs too late. But so far I think the structure is pretty established, honestly. I like the fact that he's playing the players that deserve to play, honestly. For example, Solomon and James, I'd have Nyonto Ramazani because they've shown more. So I have to give him praise for that. I have to criticize him because, in a certain sense, the in-game management at times, it hasn't, excited me, or I haven't understood it, honestly. Like, for example, against Blackburn, when Bogle first and Byron second, they both got injured, and he decided to play Ampadu at right back and then Weber at left back. I can understand if you want to play two defenders or a defensive midfielder at right back and a centre back at left back, but you need them to stay back. Ampadu stayed back, but Weber went forward, and that's the problem. You cannot transform a defender or centre back into an attacking fullback overnight. So he's really strict, in terms of how he sees football. And I like that to change. Like, for example, I said in the past, I would like when Aronson is struggling in a certain sense against certain type of system to see a switch to a 4-3-3 with Tanaka, Rothwell, and Ampadu as the number 6. So, yeah, I think the manager is doing something right, but also there's ways to improve, and I think the improvements will arrive with the transfer market, honestly. Because I'm convinced that if we don't invest in this market, we don't go up. Plain and simple, and that's a worry, honestly, because it doesn't feel that we are top of the league, okay, but after the last 2 games, Blackburn and Hull, you say, okay, we're top of the league, but we really shouldn't be at this point after these 2 games, because we're not playing in the last 2 games like the league leaders, honestly. And that's worrying because we're not finding consistency in a certain sense, We find 2-3 good results, and then you have an away game that we bottle. Always struggle to figure out, for example, Blackburn, Preston. So that's not consistency, and that's something that needs to improve. When we did that great run in the second half of the season, last season, it was great to watch. We find consistency and established system. Then when Rotter got injured and we didn't have the players to replace him from the transfer window, we missed a 10-2 last season. We went back to the experiment of Pirot and the 9. So, yeah, I think it's not only down to the manager to improve the team, but also to the board, honestly. And another, like, for example, what I've read today about a quiet January again. So, yeah, I think we'll talk about that later on probably. But
yeah,
I think it's a mixed responsibility on adapting the system to the way we want players to play, and also to the manager, to the board, to give him the players that we need right now, because there's 2 or 3 gaps in the squad, honestly.
I was going to ask as well, just, when we speak about the manager and the connection, I was just thought in my head, what about the players? Do you guys have any real connection with any of these players, do you think? Do you know what I mean? Like you did with the Coopers, even like the Alioskis, we loved him because of how crazy he was, the clicks. Is there, and that could grow obviously, but is there anything like that in this team, do you think?
I don't think there's anything specific like mad like we had with Alioski, for example. But for me, in terms of a connection personally, if I was just talking about myself, I do with Ampadu, I do with Rodon, definitely. Sam Byram, definitely, just because he's a Leeds lad and what it means. And oddly, and this is really weird for me to say this, Brendan Aronson. I feel like I've got a connection with Brendan Aronson purely because of the work that he's put in so far this season. So they would be the few that I do feel like I have a proper affinity with, and Dan James as well, actually, probably.
Yeah. I like the Dan James, the Sam Byrams type of players, the ones that maybe they're not the most talented in the squad, but they always give the 100% when they play, and they're always reliable. They're like, there's maybe you remember Angelo Di Livio, I think Paul and Jeb maybe remember him. He was called Soldatino, like little sword, like he was always present for his team. So they're like little soldiers, soldatini. So they always perform. But honestly, it's something that I've been wondering for a while now. It doesn't look that there's a leader like in the Bielsa here in this team, one that can rally the troops when we're struggling on the pitch. I think adding Gilavogi helped around the place, honestly, because he looks like an experienced player, honestly. Like when we won against Seoul, it was revealed that he spoke to the team before the match. So he helps to have experienced players. But on the pitch, honestly, Ampadu and Stroke may grow into that kind of player. But right now, I don't feel there's a proper leader on the pitch when the things go wrong that can help and rally and shout like Gattuso to the other players,
Yeah. I really like. Sorry, just quickly. I really
go
like.
For it.
I'll agree with Paul. I like Ampadu's brilliant. When he came in last season, all last season, I thought he was excellent, and this season he's growing into that leadership role a little bit more. But again, he's a different type of player and a different leader to what we had with Cooper for so long. He's growing into that where Cooper already was that, and he was Leeds, out and out Leeds, right? And I look around the squad, there's not really many people that are really out and out Leeds, and that can grow, of course, the longer they stay. But even then, because I think it's because the players are so talented now that they kind of we look at them as these crazy footballers as opposed to these are people. Do you know what I mean? In a weird way, like we saw Mateus click and we just felt that he used to wear the shirt and do the salute and all that. There was little connections there, whereas now, I like they all seem like really nice lads, by the way. They all seem like really nice people.
Sure.
But there's not that little edge to a lot of them that we've seen yet. When they do make a tackle and they get the crowd going and stuff like that. I don't know. They're all younger, they're all more cooler than the old lot, you know what I mean? Like the aliens and that. But yeah, I don't know. It's just a thought that came in my head about the connection.
Valid.
I agree. I think that there was a lot of characters that were in that side that Bielsa had. I mean, Berardi was your big hitting, hard hitting, get you off your arse when it was going a bit flat. And I idolized Berardi. My favorite player every season he was at Leeds, just absolutely loved him. For me, and then I ask as well, it's the whole heart in your sleeve thing. It's, I want you to give it crap about this team as much as I give a crap, and it comes across with those kind of players. But I think there's a couple there, and I think, Paul, you're probably right. Dan James, for me, will always be side before self. He just does the work and just gets on with it. There's no big dramas around when he's not in the team. There's no drama off the pitch around why he's not in the team, and when he is in the team, he just works hard and gets on with it. I love Pascal Struijk. I love him. I just think he's a lovely footballer, and I think he's only going to get better as he gets older. Joe Rodon, from a passion perspective, but I'm a passionate merchant, so I will always go for the more passionate kind of players, because I want to see people grabbing the jersey and ripping it off their chests when they score a goal. I wanted to matter to them. And there's probably not a huge amount of those types of characters in this team. I think it's a younger, more still kind of trying to find its place in the world kind of side. It doesn't have its character just yet.
I think, and I agree with what Locky says here, that there is that Bielsa team that went up wasn't the most skillful team in the world, but what they had was that they had a togetherness and they had a team spirit that was just ridiculous in terms of where it took them to and the levels that it took them to. And I think the difference is with this team that we've got now is that some of the players that we've got, or a few of the players that we've got, are a hell of a lot more skillful, individually skillful. And some of them are a lot more singular minded as opposed to that team ethic minded. Not saying that they don't play for the team, they do, but just that kind of the difference of who the Bielsa Leeds were versus what the Daniel Farke Leeds was. I don't know if that makes sense. In terms of,
And you look at the players. Sorry, go on, Andrea.
No worries. Go on, Locky.
Okay, I was going to say, you look at the players. You look at the players that we've brought in, and under Bielsa, we knew that those players were there not necessarily to go to the Premier League, because we were never really in a position to go to the Premier League. Whereas the players we're signing now, that they want to play for Leeds because we're close to the Prem, which is absolutely fine. I have zero problems with it. But the players under Bielsa were there before Bielsa came. Most of them were. And they weren't at Leeds to play for the Premier League. They wanted to play for Leeds in the Championship. It's a big club in the Championship. So I think there's that little difference in kind of the motivations of why they want to do well. But there's nothing wrong with either way, just to clarify that at all. Of course there isn't. It's just the connection with the fans. Obviously, they want players that are They really want to play for Leeds in that sense because they love what Leeds is. You know what I mean? As opposed to just when they get to the Premier League.
I would like to extend this type of topic, to the connection between the fans and the club too, because I think it also comes down to how the club helps in a certain way to make the players familiar to you, because in the past, during the Radicani era, of course, there were plenty of mistakes, rats tweeting and all of that. But I think the media side of it helped massively, especially with Locky, Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
They talk more, they were interviewed more. We saw them behind the scenes pretty basically, every one of them. We got to know Berardi, we got to know Dallas, we got to know Cooper, we got to know the individuals and the players too, but also the type of individuals they were, And these days, it's really difficult because the new ownership, honestly, it has an American approach. So sometimes it really feels to me that it is corporate FC, honestly. There's rarely something coming out of the club. Last season, Rotter was loved by the fans, established a good connection with the fans because there was like Georgie Cam, like Gianni Cam in the past.
Mm-hmm.
But because of that, so we saw the funny side of him, the happy happy side of him, so we related to him. And this season, honestly, I think it looks like the gates have shut down. There's very little communication and a very different approach. So I would like that in terms of how they interface, how they exchange with the community. I don't want to communicate the club. I mean, with the community, I would like to see them going with the old way, honestly, because we had a different ownership with more mistakes, with a different approach, more amateurish in a certain sense. But I think these ones, because remember they have also not the same, of course, fund, but it's the same people like Prague, Marate, Jediok, they also have an NFL franchise, and they communicate much better there with the San Francisco 49er fan base. For example, the New York Jets in the NFL, now they have fired their head coach, the general manager, and when they do interviews for the job, they communicate to the fan base. We have interviewed this manager, this person for the managerial job. We interviewed this person for the general manager job. So it's a very open and transparent approach. I think the both American, but I'm watching Welcome to Wrexham recently. I would like that kind of approach. I'm more an ownership more present into the city and the community, honestly. More, more outspoken in a certain sense in that way.
And sorry, I know we're going on a bit of tangent here, but I like this topic. It's interesting. Like, you're right in the sense that you look at all the stuff we do, the interviews and everything, they seem to be with the same 5 or 6 players. Ampadu's always in there, Byram, Dan James. It's the same characters. I want to hear from Gruev. I feel like I've not heard him speak since and I understand their English might not be ideal, but we don't care about that. Just I want to know about the play. I want to know about Snacka. I want to hear something about Snacka. What does he think of Leeds United? How's he settled in? I feel like there's not enough out there. Do you know what I mean? I honestly don't. Like Andrea said last year, it was very heavy on Rutter. All the media was very heavy on Rutter. He wasn't the best English speaker, but everything he did just made you happy. And it's silly things, whatever he did at the training ground. I just feel like we're
saying hippopotamus. The zoo trip last year, I spent ages here trying to edit a video that was similar to the Adam Sandler movie where he has his mate and is like hip hop anonymous. He's trying to teach the kid words, and he was trying to say hippopotamus at the zoo, and I was trying to edit those two videos together. I loved that stuff. But Locky, I want to jump in because it's 25 minutes into it. We haven't asked any questions yet, really. So I do want to ask a question just based on everything everyone has said. So I'm going off script here for this, but I want to ask this because I think it's a genuine question, and it's not. I don't want this to come across as a loaded question, but do you think some of the fun has been removed from these players versus maybe the players we had when Bielsa was here, who were maybe allowed to have a little bit more fun in their game? And I go back to Gianni acting the man get off the pitch and shaking dugouts and tunnels, and then you go back to Larry Ramazani, who Daniel Farke said wouldn't be doing backflips anymore after he did his first backflip and stopped doing backflips from that point on. Has the fun been taken out of these players? I'll start off with Paul, but do you think the fun's been taken out of this team just a little bit in order to just focus on the task at hand, nothing else?
I don't think it's so much that the fun's been taken out, but I think it's the task at hand side of things is very, 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 very key. because we all know that we have to get promoted this season. There's a lot riding on it. And I think for Farke knows there's a lot riding on it. So it's this kind of, let's just try and move forward professionally. And we've got a job that we need to do, basically. So I think from that aspect of it, yes, the fun's probably come out of it a little bit. We've all talked about the risk averseness of how we play sometimes versus when we play at pace, that we are just a different team when we play at pace. And sometimes we feel that Farke is, we score 3 goals in the first half of a game, and it's almost like Farke says to them at halftime, just rein it in, lads. Just, let's just protect this that we've got, when we could really, really do with going for the jugular a little bit. So I think it's because it's very much a case of we need to get to the Premiership.
Yeah, I think,
Andrea, I'll just quite just one sec, Locky. I want to ask Andrea the same question, but just as far as Paul said there, it's just about getting back to the Premiership. It's a bigger budget. It's a better squad on paper than Bielsa had. It's a much bigger squad in terms of the value of this squad than what Bielsa. I think Bielsa's squad was 15, 16 million pounds. That entire squad was valued at. This Leeds squad is valued at anything over 75, 80 million pounds, with the highest wage bills in the history of the division. Surely you should be allowing these players a little bit more creativity, assuming you agree with that statement and you haven't got a different take on it.
Well, I think it's an approach that Farke wants to take. I think you allow a little bit of creativity on the wings, but overall, the type of manager that we have, Farke, I think he sees, like I said before, with Weber, with Ampadu, like when Weber was subbed on in place of Byram, Farke wanted him to play like Byram, to get forward. So he really sees, the numbers, like the left back, I want the left back to play like this. I want the right back to play like this, regardless of the type of players he plays there, So it's a really strict system in a certain sense, because and that's the problem. Aronson fits in the number 10 position right now because he's an attacking midfielder. Nyonto Ramazani are second strikers. Why did we struggle at the weekend with Arrogate in the number 10 position? Because he wanted, of course, wingers who are not fit to play in this specific system in the way Aronson plays, play in a similar way. So we saw, for example, Nyonto coming back to the center circle with the ball, progressing with the ball backwards, and passing the ball to a defender, then sprinting back. So there's different kind of players, and that's why I said with the creativity, it comes also the not strictness, the openness to change the formation in a certain sense. Because if we don't go for a 10, honestly, I'll be happy to see a different formation when you don't play Aronson. Because we saw that you cannot adapt in this system wingers or second strikers, of course, like Nyonto Ramazani, to play as attacking midfielders, So that's why I would like to see not strictness, but openness to change the system to a 4-3-3, for example, in certain games. Because you allow, for example, we saw Tanaka and Rothwell have the ability to get forwards because they are number 8. They have good vision and they can be controlling playmakers too in the 6th position, but they're properly 8. So I would like to see also 4-3-3 with Ampadu as the playmaker and the other 2 box to box, alternating in getting forward and occupying the space behind the striker in the build-up, So yeah, I think I would like certain things in this formation, not that strict, but more open, in a certain way, in game especially.
Yeah, Lucky, what were you going to say? Sorry, mate, for cutting you off.
Yeah, no, so Andre's right. I'll speak more like kind of off the pitch side of it, because I think the difference in regimes between Bielsa and Farke is Bielsa, as we know, he hated the media, hated doing any of it. He weren't bothered. If he didn't have to, he didn't do any. He don't care about that side of the game. He's fully 100% focused on the football. Whereas Farke, we have to remember, we used to be a director of football. So he understands this side of it more. So I think there's differences. But I think what Farke is as opposed to Bielsa in this sense is he's more normal. I think most clubs are like we are. And I think that goes back to what we used to have and looking at it now and say it's a bit more normal because of that. But you look at the training ground stuff and everything, and they all seem like they're having good fun there. You can see them laughing and smiling. I don't think it's like a thing where he's standing over everyone, making sure they're not laughing. You can see Farke going around making jokes of players at training. So I don't think it's that. I think it's, and again, it's the media side of it. All the interviews after the game, you know what they're going to say. You know what they're going to say most of the time. Whereas, I always remember the Ayling one or the Cooper one. They were very honest in everything they said. And the fact of the matter is, with the owners we had then, we're probably not as professional in that sense as what we've got now. So the owners now might have people that check everything and make sure you're not saying anything. Whereas then they probably didn't even check, they probably didn't even care what they said. And so I think the club's in a different place.
It definitely is. I think to what Andrea said, there's parts of the current ownership that I really, really like. I like the fact, and it's been said here, and I wanted to bring it up here. The Wrexham comparison was made. I have saved some comments for people that will come back to them if you've asked questions and stuff. We just need to find the right ones there. Dr. Cox saying Wrexham owners are brilliant. They've always engaging with their fans and the community in Wrexham. The only difference, and the only thing I'd say that differs between where Wrexham are a very, very big fish still in a very small pond in terms of the financial clout that they've got and the fact that there's no PSR restrictions in League One and League Two. And the teams that they're up against don't have the financial clout to compete with them should they decide to flex their muscles. It's a very different situation to what we're in with Leeds. And I think you've got to look from this perspective. And this is the one side where I do get the ownerships. If we start talking about all the players that we're interested in, then we're telling everyone who we're looking at. And if that means if you've got a rival club who might be thinking about it, they could nip in ahead of you and get a deal done. Could alert a club in the division above you to go after a player they might be looking at maybe as an option for the summer. And it tells everybody what positions you're desperate to bring in, which means the value of any player you're looking at goes through the roof straight away because supply and demand. You need a number 10. I've got a number 10. Guess what? You've got to pay for them if you want them now. So there's all that kind of stuff that happens. So it's a slightly different situation, not completely different.
No, I just wanted to clarify that. I wasn't meaning, just go out and say, we want that player or we want that kind of player too.
But talk to your fans.
I would like them. Yeah, I would like to, especially in the community side of it, and the media side of it, because also that's another thing, Farke is he's the face of the club. He's the only one speaking. I think Parag Murat, the last time the club chairman, the last time he spoke was the letter after the playoff final, honestly, if I remember correctly. So it's a long time ago. So I would like them to be more involved into explain the projects of the future of the club on the short and on the long term. Not just, I'm not saying, okay, we want, for example, we want Morgan Whittaker. I would like them to go out and speak, not Farke. Farke is the manager, I would like to see, like we do in Italy, that one of the transfer hierarchy, because we have 4 basically. There's not one director of football, but there's the head of football operations, the head of recruitment, many figures, or at least the club CEO. Of course, he's not in charge of the transfer, but he's the face of the club in terms of talking, interfacing with the fan base. So I'd like to see this January, we're going to do this and that, or just plain and simple, we're not going to do any business in January. We believe in the squad. We believe the squad is good enough. So we want to invest because the manager has all the tools to go up. Just want more clarity, more presence,
I think they would.
Media.
That's why I think the window's not as close. I mean, people are reading what Angus Kinnear said 3 weeks ago today at the football advisories meeting and saying that there's no signings coming in, which is not what he said either, by the way. He said the exact same thing Daniel Farke has been saying, whereas it's a quiet January. And I don't know about anybody else, but if Leeds bring in 2 players in the entire month, that for me is a fairly quiet January. So if you listen to what Farke has said, he's identified 2. Angus Kinnear said we'll stay awake as well. That's the same line and the same rhetoric from all of them. So I don't think it's as cut and dry, but it is a case of we're not going to bring in anyone for the sake of bringing anyone in. And I think we were talking about Ballymumba came up before we came online, and unfortunately the source on Ballymumba is Football Insider, so that's probably not that true unless it starts coming from somebody else. I cut someone off there.
The other thing to think about as well, in terms of from a point of view of people saying things or coming out and saying we're looking at this or we're looking at that. Jer mentioned it. As soon as we say something along the lines of Leeds United is looking for X, Y, or Z, immediately that position goes up tenfold in value. So as soon as we get onto agents, as soon as we get onto other teams, that position has already gone up massively. And I think the big difference with American football, there's caps on salaries and payments and wages and bits and pieces, stuff like that. So it's probably a little bit easier to be more open with what you're saying and more open with what you're doing because of the way that the league actually operates. Whereas with football, it's cutthroat. It's absolutely cutthroat. And we saw it for years. Everybody would say, oh, Leeds is interested in player X, Y, or Z because it automatically raises the value of that player. And that's just the cold hard facts. That's the way it works.
Yeah. And the on Andrea, sorry, just on quick what Andrea said on the structure, like, who's it? Jordan Miles left, and someone took his place. But up there as well, apparently Nick Hammond's leaving and Greta Steinson has moved to another role. We don't know hardly anything about what that is. We've been told it's this, but what does he do? What's the point? We need to know these things as fans. If we was told he is still in charge of the transfers for Leeds United or stuff like that, it gets you at ease.
They did say that his new role doesn't involve him walking away from Leeds, that the work that he's doing at Leeds is still part of his new role, but they're just expanding his role. Right. I think Leeds just might have brought in an awful lot of management heads for the recruitment team and then realized, do we really need 4 people running the recruitment team? Can Nick not do this on his own with a team of scouts and analysts? Can that not be done that way as well? So I think there might have been just a realignment of what was actually needed in the scout market, because there was 4 people at one point heading up the scouting and recruitment team. And that's just a senior recruitment team. That's not even the youth side of it. So I think there might just be a bit of a realignment. Just a couple of really quick comments just to get into, because I saw one mentioned here, and not to be, Emmett, you're not getting a new goalkeeper. I'm sorry to break the news to you. I know you want one. And a lot of people do, but it's not going to happen. Melia will be back in goal next weekend. I would be shocked if he's not back in the net. Not my personal choice, but I think Farke will. Somebody's saying Angus Kinnear's done nothing. Angus Kinnear is the CEO. How often do you see what the CEO of any company actually does day to day? You don't. He's not involved in recruitment. He's not involved in signing players. He's involved in signing checks. And he's involved in making sure the entire entity of Leeds United as a club runs day to day, which is a massive business behind the football side as well. So not necessarily, come here, under Razrazani and Victor Orta, he was very much the man that was paying the bills and buying the players. So then, yes, not so much now. I wanted to get real quick, just get onto this, to have a look at where we are actually this year versus last year. I'll get rid of the overlay 1 second off the screen. So here we are this season, top of the pile, 53 points. Only lost 3 games in the entire first half of the season. Burnley breathing down our neck, quietly doing their business and sneaking up behind us. But if you put it versus last year, it's a lot better than I think people might actually think it is. Last season, Leeds, after 26 games, we're sitting 4th in the table. Now, this gives you home 65. And away record. So you got to bring them together. Yeah, I hate the way it does that, but it does it. So you have to kind of look over here. But I can make it easy for you. There you go. So versus last season, we are 5 points ahead of where we were at this point last season. We are 3 positions higher in the league than we were at this stage last season. We have 1 more win in the bank than this stage last season. We have 3 less defeats than we have this season and 2 extra draws. And we have scored 3 more goals and conceded 6 less goals. Paul, when you look at it on the face of things, that's progression.
It's progression, but for some people, progression, whatever that is, I don't know. Sorry, but it is progression. However, people will say it's not progression enough. People will say that we should be, and we should be 4 points further ahead than what we are. However,
but you can't get higher than first, Paul.
You can't. No, you can't get higher than first, which is absolutely true. Wish just that gap to second was a little bit different, but we are. Statistically, we are better than where we were last year. I think that the team is more balanced than what it was last year in terms of its over-reliance on a certain player last year for scoring goals. So it's a much weaker league than what it was last year as well. A much weaker league than what it was last year, which is why people will say, well, we should be way further ahead than what we are. But we are up on every metric when you look at it. It's a weird one, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, just coming from West Yorkshire Retro Gamer, only Arsenal have gone an entire season unbeaten, and that was a hell of an Arsenal side that did it as well, stacked with absolute quality. Yeah. Andrea, looking at that side by side, the world isn't on fire. We'd like it to be a little bit better, but would you have taken that at the start of the season?
Yeah, I think we are where we need to be, honestly, because I think Paul nailed it when he said, the league is weaker this season. Absolutely. I agree totally with that, because last season you had 2 sides who had, of course, lost players on the way, like Leicester and Southampton at the start of the season, but overall they had very good squads, very similar to our squad. So there were 3 good teams. And an Ipswich side that was absolutely having the season of their life, continuing on the established run from the promotion season in League One, But there were also other good sides, especially Norwich. I think Norwich is weaker this year, and we see why, especially in the table. Middlesbrough was a good side last season. They are a good side still this season. Coventry, they lost the playoff final. They still had, despite losing Gyökeres and Eimer, a good side. So the league was a top league last season, honestly. This season is weaker because if you look at Burnley, Sheffield United, and Leeds and Sunderland, I think we have, all of us have good squads, But in a certain department in the squad, each of these squads, you still have gaps. So I think it will be, especially if other teams, like Burnley, they've been linked with Morgan Whittaker, Sheffield United linked with Tom Cannon and Ben Brereton Diaz. Sunderland got Enzo Lefebvre. So I think a new league will start in January. We'll need to see how the squads look, because like we saw, for example, Ipswich and Southampton strengthening last season. When Ipswich got Sarmiento, Kiefer Moore, Southampton with Rothwell, David Brooks. So I think we are where we need to be. I would like the gap to be more established, of course, but I'll take it so far. But I think it needs to be larger, and in order to do that, I think if other teams strengthen the gaps that they have, they cover the gaps that they have. We don't need to sit and look. We need to react to, because we didn't last season, and it cost us, especially when Rotter was out for this year in operation, because we revert to Pirlo in the 10, and again Bamford. Again that experiment, And we don't need to do experiment this season. We need to be more established, because on paper, like you said, Joe, too. Like you said, Jer and Paul, you said it too. It's the biggest squad in the league in terms of wages, but also the smallest squad in the league, like Locky always says. So numbers, we need to find a good balance on that, Jer. Absolutely.
And I worry about things like that. Locky, would that be a factor coming into the second half of the season? We'll get on to talk about the transfer window as well, but you're so close to the line now. We're into the second half of the season. The nights are getting brighter. The days are getting longer. We've got that lovely long run now into the end of the season that only the March international break will upset us on. Are we positioned nicely to just spring into action in the second half of the season now?
Absolutely. I think we are. And I'm looking at that last year, and I couldn't believe we were fourth and we brought one in January. And I was all right with that, by the way, just to clarify. What was I thinking? Yeah, so crazy, innit? We're in fourth. How many points off Leicester? We're all right with just Connor Roberts. Crazy. I don't know why I thought that. But anyway, so now I'm looking at that going, right, we're top. So let's just get one or two in. Like you said, we do have the highest wages, but I don't care about that. That's not my problem. Cool. Let's get more wages in. I don't care. As long as we're not breaking any rules, that's not my problem. You know what I mean? Get more in. But it looks fine. Let's just keep building on it, because the others are improving, like Andrea said. So let's improve too. Because you can always improve, you can always add.
I think you have to as well. But Lucky, staying with you just on this, you look at the stats for the season. Top of it's the teams, second is the players, and Paul sent these over again, so thanks to Paul for that. But if you look at the stats, on goals, top, shots, top. We're not in yellow cards, which is, I'd like to see us in that. That's just a different version of me. And we're top on passes as well. And then when you go to individual players, is probably where we see that balance of the squad rather than relying on individual brilliance, because we don't appear anywhere in this set of passes. And Joe Rodon and Pascal Struijk have passed the ball 4,000 times between the two of each other. So we have that to deal with as well. But I mean, all the numbers are decent on paper. I mean, the average ratings are good. Top goal scorer, Joe Pirlo's 10 goals halfway through the season, on course for 20 goal season, which would be fantastic for him. He's also top on assists. Willie Gnonto, for what he was having a really, really big wobble at the moment, and a lot of question marks around what people would do with him, still has 9 GNA this season, which shows you how well he started the season and how much he's gone off the boil. Brendan Aronson's in there along with Dan James, Matteo Joseph and Brendan Aronson in the big misses. Had those misses been turned into goals, the two of them are much higher up on this table as well. The total goals and assists is good as well. So I mean, everyone's chipping in. But as someone has said, maybe the Leeds team isn't as good as it was last year, Locky, and we are lacking that individual brilliance.
Yeah, and you're right. And don't show some people the big chances missed. People will not believe that for 1 second with the uncriticisable Matteo Joseph.
People don't believe certain stats about Brendan Aronson, don't they? Not all of them.
Yeah, exactly. Who'd have thought? But no, it is a weird thing with the squad, because there's definitely not the the individual quality. But then we relied on that too much. Whereas this year, you could argue we're not as reliant as we should be on certain individuals. It is, like Andrea said, it's a fine balance you have to get. And this is true for any team in this league. Exactly the same for Burnley as well, who have a lot of really good individual players. They kind of just win their games, or they just don't concede at all and win a game based on the individual player. Whether that's a cross in the box, Ian Fleming, I think he scored about 3 30-yard plus goals in the last 5 weeks. Like, those are the things, that you need individuals. Look at Tanaka, little things like that. But it's important to me that we maintain what we have and build on it. I think it's absolutely key. And it's not even a matter of, Farke's got enough, has he? But what is enough? I want more than enough. I want us to get as much as we can. We didn't go up last year, in my opinion, in the top 2, because a big part of that was Leicester, who came down from the Premier League having overspent loads and had the most expensive squad in the Championship history, and obviously went up with that. I want us to have that, without breaking any rules. I want us to spend. It doesn't have to be a lot. Just bring in players that are right for the team and it can help the depth, because I don't think we have it.
I completely agree. And I'm of the opinion now the PSR accounts went in 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, so they're in.
Yeah.
Go nuts.
Yeah.
Go nuts. This is if you were ever, and I look at Sunderland and you look at Enzo Lufc coming in for Sunderland. I suppose we'll talk about January now a bit. But with Enzo Lufc coming in from Sunderland, you look at, it's already been mentioned, Burton Diaz, Timothy Uman, Tom Cannon, and Chowdhury from Leicester all being talked about targets of Sheffield United. Burnley, Morgan Whittaker have had a bid turned down from Morgan Whittaker. They're also looking at Ryan Manning, but they could lose Trafford in goal, so they have to defend a little bit as well. There was a question that came in, all caps, Ezzy. Jared Latila has already spoken. He hasn't. That has to be clarified. Leeds didn't speak to Latila. They were interested, named interested, but it looks like Atalanta in the MLS are going to come in and usurp everybody and pick him up and bring him over to America in a very bold move. But Andre, when you look at this. Yeah, when you look at this and you see what everyone else is bringing in, the gap is only a point. Other teams are strengthening and they're strengthening in key areas. Burnley not scoring enough goals, or potentially bringing in another striker after bringing one in, our winger / striker in Whittaker. Sheffield United right behind us. And bear in mind that they had a 2-point penalty this season already, that if that penalty hadn't been, they'd be top of the league right now. And they're bringing in serious firepower up front. And apparently they want Tom Cannon to play up front. And they want Burton Diaz to play on the wing. So they're going for it with attacking players now. They're trying to get more goals. And then Enzo Lafie is just an incredible signing for Sunderland to get. And they're fourth. They're having a crack at this. Yeah. You don't want to look back at the end of the season and go, well, if we just done this and then get back into that again, or do you almost try at LUFC? Surely Leeds would look at this and go, don't be silly. Don't leave the door open. You've got maybe two gaps you need to fill. Get a 10. Maybe a 9. I can do without cover for right centre back, because I think we've enough and we could manage. I'd love that, but 2 anyway. You think it would be very naive for them to sit and do nothing and watch all of their rivals strengthen extensively in attacking positions.
Yeah, I agree completely, 100%. Because it's I think last season, when I saw that we only signed Conor Roberts, I thought, because it was clear that we had the same problems in the number 9 position at this season, because Pirot was there. Then you had Bamford, where last season too his injury problems. And you have young Matteo Joseph, who, by the way, is not 17 or 16, he's 21. He has the same age of Gnonto. So right now he's played 59 games, he scored 5 goals. So he had opportunities, but there's surely a player in there, but he's not in this precise moment. Not for now, exactly. A backup striker ready for a side that wants to be promoted at the end of the season in the Premier League. Right now, he's not up there yet. So, and the problem is that you're one injury away from a domino effect, because you move players like Rodon gets injured, you have to move Ampadu back. For example, Firpo is injured, and we had Byram injured too. We had to move Berber in the left back position, Aronson gets injured, you have to try to invent a player into the number 10 position, with Gnonto, Ramazani, Solomon, but none of them has played there, in the way the Farke wants them to play, because 2 of them are second strikers and another one has always been a winger, Solomon. So I like us to see to sort out the number 10 position, to bring in a player that can alternate with Aronson. And I would like us to bring in a number 9 that can challenge Pirot. So you have two good number 9s, because Bamford is always injured. Joseph is not ready. And the final of our wars right now is agreed the right centre-back position. But if I have to choose 2 out of 3, I'll take the number 10 absolutely 100% and the number 9. Because especially if Sheffield United, while there's after a post-match, I think in a post-match interview, he said the completely opposite of Farke. He said that they want to bring in players because they went past now their problems with the takeover in the past, the finances and all that. So now they can spend, they can invest, and they will bring in players for sure. So we don't need to sit back. I'm not open to. I'm not up for, okay, other teams are investing, so we need to invest too. No, we need to invest regardless of the other teams, because we have two clear gaps, the right centre-backs and the number 10, and a position where you have an injured player, a young player not ready, and your number 9, your starting number 9. So if you take out the number 9, you just have the young player, and the player was obviously injured, Joseph and Bamford. So absolutely, we need to take all the tools, because we cannot afford not to be promoted with the squad. Otherwise, you'll lose Nyonto in the summer, you may lose Ramazani, you may lose Ampadu, you may lose Tanaka, and it's exactly a complete a rehaul of the squad if that happens.
Yeah. For me, for 9 and a 10 are the most important positions for me for this transfer window. If it comes down to just getting one in, the one that I want to come in is a 10 more than anything. I think that's the one that we really, really, really need. And forgive me, this is probably going to sound big-headed. I'm not that bothered about what the other teams are bringing in. It doesn't Whittaker. So he's currently playing in a team that's at the bottom of the championship. I don't care. I know that sounds slightly, but I don't care. I really don't. I care about what we do and where we are and what we're doing. But for me, it's criminal if we don't bring in a 10, and it's criminal but less so if we don't bring in if we don't get in a backup striker for Pirot. That's the way that I see it. But I think as some fans, we have a tendency to go within the space of, yes, I know it's been 13 days, to go, we haven't signed anybody, that's it. Sack the board, sack the manager, sack everybody, get them all gone, get everything gone. Listen, everybody's entitled to their opinion. Everybody's entitled to be frustrated. Of course they are. But there's not been loads of business going on yet in the transfer window. There's not been loads happening and, big signings happening. And unfortunately, it's that domino effect. You can't just sometimes go and get a player straight away. There has to be things that happen in order for you to do that. So if you want a particular striker, Latte Lath, for argument's sake, we've been rumoured to have been interested in him, X, Y, and Z. We can't just go and get him without, for argument's sake, us sending Joffrey out on loan or selling Bamford, or without Middlesbrough bringing somebody in. So it's that weird kind of waiting game domino effect sometimes. I just think that sometimes people think that transfers are very simple to do and very easy. I'll just go and whack 30 million on the table and that'll sort it out. It doesn't always work out that way, unfortunately. I know we say it all the time, but it's that patience that you need to have with it. I get the frustration, but for me, I want a 10, definitely, and a 9. Defensively, I think we're absolutely fine defensively. Keeper, forget about it. It's not happening in this transfer window. Not at all. But a 10 and a 9 for me is the two key areas that I want to see come in. But it's just that everybody expects everything to be done in the first week of January, and it doesn't work like that, unfortunately. I wish it did. It'd be great. I hate this.
I think it's also the levels at which Leeds have to operate. And if you look at the summer window, we got Solomon because we had to wait until the end of the window nearly to get him in. We had to wait and see what Spurs were going to do. And if Leeds are looking at players in and around that level, then they're going to have to wait on the Premier League clubs to decide, well, actually, we can't get our first target, so we're going to keep this guy now as the backup option. So there's all of that stuff going on as well. So that should be taken into consideration. On the Mateo Joseph thing is actually funny enough. I watched a lot of him the weekend, watched the game back. I watched the clips of him as well. And if I'm analysing the number 9, a striker, his hold of play is excellent. His link-up play is really, really good. He shows for the ball so well, so often. He runs the channels. He presses well. finishing's not there. That will come. His decision making for me is questionable at times when he gets into the final third when he's facing goal. I think all of that improves with age, and the more experience he gets, then the finishing will improve along with that. I think he's got everything else in his game to be a really good number 9, but I do agree with what everyone's saying is we're not in a luxury position where we can afford to be blooding youngsters and giving them lots of minutes. We've got to have players in the team that can make an immediate impact and go on and score goals. So I would love to see Joseph stay with Leeds. I think he's going to be a really, really, really good number 9 going forward. But we need somebody for now as well. And I think that needs to be addressed, relying on Pat. I just think that's off the table now. I think Pat Bamford as an option is off the table completely now. So you need to have somebody, because if Pirro picks up an injury, then you're relying on the, unsculpted number 9 that's coming up behind him, who's not ready yet and deserves more time, to be fair, at his age as well, his first breakout season. Locky, what are your thoughts on this as well? Is it just a little bit naive to sit on our hands, or do you think we'll go and do something?
Yeah, I think so. I'm not saying we're not. Let me clarify. People seem to think I think we will. I think we will get someone in. I'm just explaining that we have to. And I disagree with what Sean said earlier, to be honest, about and it's good discussion about no one will come in that's as good as the guys we have. They won't want to sit on the bench. But if that's the case, then football will be played with 11 players. You need competition. It's really important. No footballers coming in looking at our strikers and going, I'm not going to play there. The fact
you don't get better without it.
No, exactly.
No player improves as a player with no competition behind you. You need to have it all the time.
Yeah, and these players that you bring in, you're top of the league in the Championship. You're a few months off the Premier League. That's what they're looking at. They don't necessarily care if they're starting every single minute for the Championship season. They want to get themselves in a position where they're ready to compete for a Premier League spot next season, right? This is not a short-term thing. You're bringing players in to develop. And there's loads of good players on the continent that are not as expensive or don't play in the Premier League or not expectants. And this is the difference. When you come from La Liga or Serie A or the French top tier, you might be expecting to start every single game. But if you're coming from a league that isn't that high and your way into the Premier League is through the Championship, which we see so much in this, especially with Scandinavian-based players, those are the markets and those are the type of players that you want to bring in. Because the fact is they probably are as good as the players we've got, but they're not in the higher leagues. So they've not got that expectance to start every game. So and that's where I think Leeds need to be looking. If we're just looking at loans from the Premier League, it's going to be extremely hard. And we're going to have to wait for stuff to change. And you still might not get a player. So, yeah, and on the targets, excuse me, voice is going. On the targets, I do want a centre-back. My whole thing on this is Ampadu is our hub. We are building a team around him. That's what we got said when he's brought in. Can't build around him if he's going to centre-back every 3 weeks. I don't want that. I want him to stay there.
I don't see it with him. I don't see it.
Yeah. Well, I'll just, that should be the last resort for me. If it's a last resort, you've had bad injuries at centre-back, he has to go in there. Don't care. Brilliant. We've got Grove to come in. Fine. But if that's if that's the next option, I don't like it. I understand what people are saying. And luckily enough, we have Joe Rodon, who is fit most weeks. So if Joe Rodon was injury prone, I'd be more worried, but he isn't. So I'm actually all right. But still, bring someone in who can compete for that place. A younger guy who can come in and compete. I think it's important. So there's the centre-back, the 10 definitely, because we literally have no competition for Aronson in there. And the number 9. And I agree with what you said, Joe. Mateo Joseph has it. He's not showing it. And that's the difference. No one here is saying he doesn't have it. We all like him a lot.
Oh, 100%.
We all do.
100%.
Yeah, we've all said a lot of good things about him this year and last year. But it's on performance, and you have to review this. What we're doing right now, we're reviewing halfway through the season. How are the players doing? Is Joseph doing as well as we thought we could? No. So do we bring someone in who can get us up the line? Joseph goes away in the summer, works really hard. He might come back even better and fight for a place, or get a really good loan when you're in the Premier League, right? Eredivisie, for example, somewhere like that. Likewise to that, we might not bring a striker in. Mateo Joseph might turn up in the second half of the season and be an absolute beast. And I can't wait if that's the case. And he's got it in him. That's the key part. But that's the risk, right? We don't know if that's going to happen. So that's why I think a 9 is really important.
Okay. One quick sec. Joe is in the chat. How you doing, Joe? But just to put Ezzy straight here, no one on this panel has said Leeds don't need players. In fact, we've all said at least 2, if not 3. And turn your caps lock off. Stop shouting at people. No need for it. All right.
Stop shouting.
No one on this panel has once said that we don't need players. We've all said at least 2, if not 3. So, yeah. But the good thing about, I suppose, Paul, before you wrap this up, is we're all talking about the same thing, which is why I think we'll be okay. I think Leeds will go and do 2. But if they just cover, and that's all it is now, it's just cover. You're not looking necessarily for starting players. You're looking for someone that will come in and do a job off the bench or fill a hole for a bit. Maybe somebody a little bit better for a striker. And I get the fact that the club probably have one eye on next summer, knowing that, because the question was asked, is this squad good enough for the Premier League? And looking where Leicester, Southampton and Ipswich are, no. We need a major overhaul come the summer, because looking at that gap between the two divisions. So they're looking at that with one eye, probably trying to keep one hand in their pocket, but they also need to take the other hand out of the pocket and just throw a few quid to make sure they actually get there in the first place and can actually then go and spend that money and not look at next summer where they're going, where do we cut the costs here to keep this squad?
Yes, I agree. Is the short answer. It's a weird one. It's from a Premier League point of view, it's difficult, because if you're going to take a player from the Premier League, we know what happens with the managers from those teams is that they want guaranteed minutes for their players. And this is where Locky is 100% right in terms of going into Europe and getting players from the Eredivisie or getting players from maybe a league down from League on something like that, where players aren't going to be expecting to play every single game, might be the better option. But nobody's got any patience to wait to see if that can happen. But it's that's where I think it's going to make the difference. We're not going to be able to go and get, or I don't think the likelihood of a Premiership player coming to us is on the cards in January, because they won't guaranteed minutes. I think it'll be more a European player that comes in that knows that he's got to work for it to get to where we need to go. That's kind of how I see it.
Yeah. And just on, again, the whole, if they come in, they'll want to play. The fact of the matter is, we're seeing teams want Bertrand Diaz, and one of them teams is Sheffield United, who already have, I've got it here, Tyrese Campbell, Kiefer Moore playing up front for them. Is he guaranteed minutes? Probably not. But it's guaranteed he'll push them. And he thinks in his own mind that he's going to be that starter. That's the type of player you're looking at, right? And that's got to be the mentality of the players we bring in. I don't want us to sign a player that thinks, oh, well, I'm not going to start, so I don't want to come. I want a guy that's going, all right, I want to start there. I'll push myself. So that's what I don't know. I think that's what we need.
Yeah. The other thing is that, I'm fuming because in the scouting report, last summer, before last season, we put Tom Cannon and Josh Maja, in the number 9. And now they have the end of a season, this season. But yeah, I think Tom Cannon too. So, sorry, Paul, I didn't catch you.
Stop scouting players for other teams.
Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
Someone's listening.
With Tom Cannon going back, to Leicester, Sheffield United, I'll try to get him. I think it might be an option for us too, honestly, to be fair, in a certain sense. But I agree overall, we need to look also at the continent, There's a good player, number 10. I think both me and Locky have mentioned it in the past. Pavel Sulc of Victoria Pilsen, for example. Perfect. There's plenty of good players. Absolutely. Look, for example, Norwich went and got Matej Jurasek from Slavia Prague, another cracking player for the championship. So there's players out there, especially in those leagues. The German second tier, the Czech league, the Greek league too. There's plenty of thanks. You flatter me.
Working on
with that one.
Working on it.
But yeah, there's opportunities like Paul mentioned the Ligue 2, the second tier of France. There's good players. Kvistgaard and other players, in the Danish league, Norwegian league. Last season we mentioned, for example, Bjork and Berg. I won't get them now, honestly, but it's just an example that there's good players in Norway too. For example, Åge is a winger, but just an example to. So then there are also good players in lower leagues,
I wanted to pick one name out of that before I ask you the final, all of you, the final question. But Wayne's put this up. Tom Cannon. Seriously, I was going to say, Tom Cannon's probably exactly what you're looking for, because you're looking for a different profile of striker to what you've currently got. Yeah. And look, Tom Cannon's Irish as well, so I get to see him. All I can say about Tom Cannon is he's filthy most of the time. He's always at somebody. I think Leeds fans would love him. I think he'd come in and he'd upset defenders. He's very aggressive striker.
He elbowed Strauch,
and he
works. It was Strauch elbow.
Yeah, but he likes elbowing lots of people. It's not exclusive to big Dutch guys. Like, he will run around and freely elbow anybody who gets in his way. So it might be exactly the type of profile we're looking for. Andy, behave yourself or you're going and turning out. But none of that stuff here tonight. Right, final question I want to ask everyone in rotation. And first one's to Paul. Second half of the season, Leeds are ready to go, top of the pile. What is your biggest worry or fear for the second half of the season?
An injury to the number 10 or the number 9.
And no cover.
And no cover. Yep. That's quite simply what my biggest worry is.
Okay. Andrea?
Yeah, pretty same. No investment in January, and we come to regret it like we did last season. That's my biggest worry.
Yeah. What about you, Locky?
I agree with these two, but I'm going to say something different. I still think it's always about us just having the mentality in the last 10 games. It's always key for Leeds, and we always seem to have a wobble. So as long as our wobble is short, it doesn't go on for 5 or 6 games, 1 or 2 games. So I'm always worried about them last 10, and I just think we need the character to get through them.
Yeah, I think everyone along the same lines of injuries. And I will keep an eye on the March international break is the one that I keep going back to last season. It's the one that worries me. No fair promotion earned, not to be expected. Absolutely nail on the money, Wayne. We'll wrap it up with that, folks. Massive thank you as always for sticking around and supporting the channel. You can check out Paul at the Leeds Therapy, Locky at Locky Leeds, and Andrea floating around on Italian TV now, as well as the odd podcast here and there as well.
Interesting.
Very suave and interested. Yeah, so you can check them all out. All the details are down below as well. Massive thanks to everyone for popping in. Paul, what's going on at Leeds Therapy this week?
Just dropped my review for the Harrogate game today. A bit late, but I was hungover, so whatever. And there'll be some short form content coming off of that that'll be going on to YouTube Shorts and TikTok as well for those people that are a little bit like me and don't have the capacity to sit through a full review just to get little snippets. So yeah, watch out for those on TikTok and also on YouTube.
Brilliant. Appreciate that, Paul. Thanks. And Locky, what about you? What's going on in Locky Leeds this week?
I'm not on the Harrogate game. I just didn't have time, to be honest. I do so much thingy on my scouting videos that I just don't do what else. I'm a sad loner, but it's what it is. So those are the ones on the channel. The scouting videos are on there. I've done a striker and a number 10, and I'm going to do a specific EFL market one next, players in the EFL that we could potentially sign.
Yeah. Sean Healy, my fear is the Farke doing well in the Prem because I'll get pelters. You can also just put your hand up, Sean, and go, got that one wrong, and we can all just move on. That's how it goes. It's an easy enough thing to say. Anyway, folks, listen, big thanks. Sorry, Andrea, what are you doing this week? I know you haven't got a YouTube channel, but what are you doing this week?
I don't have it. About Leeds, recently I've decided to do more comments in terms of, for example, at least some threads, analyzing the number 10 position, what we need, especially in games. But yeah, you just see me, like you said, you're floating around like a pundit in Italian TV here in the podcast. I'm always hoping for a football chat. So that's the thing. Also, basketball. I was hosted in our basketball show. I was one of the guests this time on YouTube. Yeah.
You should see the way he wears his glasses and twiddles his little pen between his fingers.
Oh, he's very professional, isn't he? He's very professional.
It's just delicious. Delicious.
There's an Irish YouTuber who would say the same thing as follow Andrea. He's delicious. That's what you should do. Go and check him out. Right, folks, we're out of here. Talk to you later. See ya. Bye.